The morning of our divorce hearing, I sat on the wooden bench outside courtroom 3B, clutching a plain white envelope so tightly the paper had softened at the corners. Inside, it was the only proof I had left of the last 7 years of my life. 7 years I'd spent building someone else's dream while mine slowly disappeared. Across the hall, Ethan stood with his attorney, laughing like this was a graduation ceremony instead of the end of our marriage. He was wearing the charcoal suit I bought him during his first clinical rotation, the one he always said made him look like a real doctor. Now that he finally was one, I wasn't part of the picture anymore. His attorney, a woman with a sharp bob and a sharper tongue, whispered something to him that made him smirk. He looked over at me the way someone looks at a stranger who asked for directions, mildly annoyed and fully detached. 7 years. 7 years of tuition payments, textbooks, lab fees, rent, food, gas, exams, breakdowns, late-night coffee runs, scribbled notes, flashcards on every wall of our apartment. Everything poured into the man now pretending I didn't exist. And when he finally became Dr. Ethan Hale, he served me divorce papers. No explanation. No conversation. Just a signature and a text that said, "It's better for both of us to move on." That was 3 months ago. What he didn't know was that the judge was about to learn exactly how much moving on was going to cost him. A courtroom clerk opened the door. Case 14C, Hale versus Hale. Ethan straightened his tie like he was about to accept an award. I stood up slowly, leaving behind the version of me who had spent years apologizing for not being enough. Inside the courtroom, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the judge took her seat. She was an older woman with silver hair pulled into a tight braid, a no-nonsense face that made everyone sit up a little straighter. Ethan's attorney stood first. "Your Honor, as previously filed, my client seeks a clean and immediate dissolution of the marriage. No alimony, no asset distribution. Both parties entered the relationship with nothing, and both can leave with nothing." The judge turned her gaze to me. "Mrs. Hale, do you contest this?" I swallowed, my throat dry. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "I do." Ethan exhaled loudly, annoyed. "Your Honor," he said, "with all due respect, she's trying to prolong this. We didn't build anything together. I paid my way through medical school. I built my own career. There are no shared assets." My hands tightened around the envelope. The judge lifted an eyebrow. "Is that true, Mrs. Hale? Did he pay his way through medical school?" I didn't look at Ethan. I looked at the judge. "No," I said quietly. "That is not true." Ethan's attorney rolled her eyes. "Your Honor, my client has provided documentation of all loans and financial aid used during his education. There is no record of Mrs. Hale contributing." "That's because," I said, interrupting, "I didn't pay through loans. I paid out of pocket." Silence snapped through the room. The judge leaned forward. "Explain." I took a slow breath. When Ethan proposed, he told me his dream was to become a doctor. He said he could change lives. He said he could make a difference, but he didn't have the financial support to get there. I swallowed hard as Ethan stiffened. "So I worked," I continued. 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I used every paycheck, every tax refund, every raise. I paid for his tuition, his textbooks, his exam fees, his MCAT, his residency applications, his scrubs, his rent, his groceries, his car insurance. Everything, for 7 years. Ethan shook his head quickly. "That's ridiculous." I finally turned to face him. "You told me you'd pay me back when you became a doctor." His face blanched for the first time. The judge looked between us. "Mrs. Hale, do you have any documentation of these payments?" My pulse steadied. "Yes, Your Honor," I said, lifting the envelope. "I do." "And what is inside that envelope?" "The truth," I whispered. The judge nodded. "Please approach." My legs felt strangely strong as I walked to the bench. I placed the envelope gently in front of her. She opened it and pulled out the stack of papers, each printed spreadsheet, each bank statement, each processed tuition receipt with Ethan's name on it, each online payment confirmation highlighting my account as the sender. I had kept everything, not because I thought I'd need it, but because for 7 years, Ethan insisted, "You should track it, just until I can reimburse you." The judge read the document slowly, very slowly. Ethan's attorney shifted uncomfortably. When the judge finished, she set the papers down and looked directly at Ethan. "Mr. Hale," she said, voice low and steady, "is there any reason you told this court you paid your own way through medical school?" Ethan cleared his throat. I meant I worked hard. I meant—" "That is not what you said," the judge cut him off sharply. "You stated, under oath, that the marriage produced no financial interdependence. Yet I am looking at 7 years of documented support from your wife." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I don't owe her anything," he muttered. "She wanted to help me. She insisted—" "No," I said. "You insisted." His attorney touched his arm, whispering urgently, but he shook her off. The judge continued, "Mr. Hale, the law is very clear. A spouse who sacrifices financially to support the other's advanced education is entitled to equitable reimbursement upon dissolution of the marriage." Ethan stared at her, utterly frozen. She lifted the stack of papers again. "And judging by these figures, Mrs. Hale contributed a substantial and, frankly, extraordinary amount to your professional advancement." She turned back to me. "Mrs. Hale, do you have an estimated total?" I nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. The total I invested in Ethan's education and living expenses amounts to—" I took a breath. $234,000. Ethan's attorney inhaled sharply. The judge wrote the number down. "Mr. Hale, do you dispute this amount?" Ethan's voice cracked. I don't remember those numbers." The judge held up a hand. "That is not what I asked." "Do you dispute them?" Ethan looked at the papers again, then at me, then at the judge. I guess not," he whispered. The judge nodded, picked up her pen, and began writing her ruling. Ethan sank into his chair like the air had been punched out of him. His attorney pressed her fingers to her forehead, exasperated. I stood there quietly, still, steady, finally strong. The judge finished writing and looked up. "My ruling will be read in full shortly. But let me be very clear, Mr. Hale." She tapped the envelope. "This divorce will not leave your wife with nothing. In fact, it appears she has already given you far more than you have given her." Ethan's face drained of its last bit of color. And somewhere deep inside me, a door finally closed. The judge set the envelope aside, folded her hands, and studied Ethan with the kind of stare that could strip a person down to their bones. "Mr. Hale," she said calmly, "you benefited enormously from your wife's financial support, and then you attempted to conceal that support from this court." Ethan swallowed hard. His attorney stood abruptly. "Your Honor, my client was under the impression that these payments were gifts." "They were not gifts," the judge cut in sharply. "They were documented educational expenses that directly contributed to his earning capacity." His attorney deflated. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Hale, given the circumstances, the court is prepared to consider restitution, alimony, or both." Ethan's mouth fell open. "Alimony?" he croaked. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Is there a reason you believe your wife should not receive it?" He ran a shaky hand through his hair. She doesn't need it. She can work." I finally looked at him. "I haven't had a full-time job in 7 years, Ethan. You asked me not to." His face flickered, a brief, panicked recognition that yes, he had said those words many times. "I need you to handle things at home. I don't want you stressed. Let me focus on school. You'll work later." The judge turned to him again. "You assured your spouse her sacrifices would lead to shared stability. Instead, as soon as you became financially independent, you ended the marriage." Ethan stared at his shoes. The judge tapped her pen. "Before I deliver my full ruling, I have one remaining question for Mr. Hale." His head lifted. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Did you file for divorce only 2 weeks after receiving your medical license?" Silence. Tight, heavy, suffocating. Ethan shifted in his seat. It just wasn't working anymore." The judge tilted her head. "After 7 years of support?" "It wasn't about that," he muttered. "What was it about?" He didn't answer. His attorney nudged him, whispering something urgent, but the judge repeated, firmer, "Mr. Hale, what was the true reason you filed?" His jaw tightened. Veins appeared in his neck. His entire face flushed red. And then, he snapped. "Fine!" he shouted. "You want the truth? I didn't want to spend the rest of my life paying her back." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. He kept going, voice cracking with anger he'd been hiding for years. I worked hard for that degree. I studied every day. I put in the hours. I sacrificed my sleep, my social life, everything. And what did she do? She paid some bills. Some bills. My throat burned, but I refused to look away. He wasn't finished. I'm the one who's a doctor now. I'm the one who deserves the career, the income, the freedom. And I wasn't going to spend the next 30 years handing half my paycheck to her just because she wrote a few checks. His attorney closed her eyes like she was watching a train crash in slow motion. The judge didn't blink. "Mr. Hale," she said quietly, "do you realize what you've just admitted?" He said nothing. Because he did. Everyone did. The judge leaned forward. "You did not divorce your wife because of incompatibility or marital breakdown or any legitimate reason. You divorced her because you believed her contributions made her a liability." My chest tightened. For years I'd repeated the same question to myself. Why wasn't I worth staying for? And now the answer sat in front of me, in the arrogance of a man who believed the world, and I, owed him something. Ethan's attorney tried to recover. "Your Honor, sit down," the judge ordered, and she obeyed instantly. The judge lifted the envelope again. "Mrs. Hale," she said, addressing me, "the records you provided demonstrate exceptional financial support. They contradict Mr. Hale's sworn statements. They also show he was fully aware of your sacrifices and intentionally ignored them after obtaining his degree." She tapped the paperwork. "This is not a simple divorce. This is exploitation." Ethan slumped in his chair, defeated and pale. The judge continued, her voice clear and decisive. "Based on the evidence, the court will consider the following remedies: restitution of all education-related expenses, 5 years of rehabilitative alimony, a percentage of Mr. Hale's future earnings BI, attorney's fees covered by Mr. Hale, and, depending on the final review, a compensation order for emotional damages." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Future earnings?" he whispered. "You can't." "I can," the judge said, "and I will." His shoulders collapsed. I lowered my gaze for a moment, not in shame, but in acknowledgement. 7 years. 7 years of shifting my dreams aside, of making excuses for his indifference, of believing one day he'd remember who stood beside him when he had nothing. Now the truth was laid bare in front of everyone. The judge turned to me gently. "Mrs. Hale, do you have anything you'd like to add before I finalize my ruling?" I stood slowly. My voice didn't shake. "Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to thank my mother." Ethan blinked in confusion. "Your mother?" the judge asked. I nodded. "She always taught me to keep receipts, not just the paper kind, but the truth. She told me that if someone ever tries to rewrite your history, make sure you hold the original." The judge smiled softly. "That is wise counsel." I looked at Ethan then, truly looked. Once, he had been the boy I believed in. Now he was the man who hid behind a title I paid for. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I just want what I'm owed." The judge nodded. "And the law agrees with you." She lifted her gavel. But before she struck it, Ethan whispered one last thing, barely audible. "You were supposed to stay quiet." I didn't even turn. The gavel struck, and everything changed. When the gavel struck, the courtroom echoed with a finality that vibrated through my bones. Ethan didn't stand right away. He stayed slumped in his chair, staring at the desk as if the wood grain might offer him a different ending. His attorney leaned over and whispered urgently, "We can appeal." "No," the judge said firmly, not even looking up. "You cannot appeal sworn testimony that your client willingly offered. Court is adjourned." A beat of silence fell. Then chaos. Ethan's attorney tried to gather her papers, dropping half of them. Ethan's face had gone blank, almost frozen. His lips parted, but no sound came out. He looked like a man whose entire future had been yanked away in one clean motion. The bailiff opened the door. People began filing out. I stood in the aisle, breathing slowly, letting my heartbeat settle into a rhythm that didn't belong to him anymore. Ethan finally pushed himself to his feet. He walked toward me, but not with confidence, not like the man who once believed he deserved every break life gave him. He stopped a few feet away. "Why would you do this to me?" His voice cracked like a boy who'd lost his favorite toy. I stared at him. "You did this to yourself," He shook his head, clenching his jaw. I told you I didn't want to spend my whole life paying you back. I felt nothing. Not hurt. Not anger. Just clarity. You were never supposed to pay me back, Ethan. You were supposed to build a marriage with me. You chose not to. He looked away, defeated. His attorney tugged his sleeve. Ethan, we need to go. But before he left, he said something quietly. You were supposed to stay with me until I got established. That was the plan. I raised my chin. That was your plan. Not mine. He faltered, lost. And then he left. I stepped into the hallway, breathing the outside air of the courthouse as if it were the first time I'd breathed in years. But before I could leave, someone called my name. Mrs. Hale? I turned. A woman in a navy blazer, holding a clipboard, walked toward me. She wore the ID badge of Street Briar Medical Residency Program, Ethan's program. She introduced herself. I'm Dr. Melanie Carter, the residency administrator. May I speak with you a moment? My stomach tightened. Is something wrong? She pursed her lips as if debating how much to say. I was present in the courtroom, she said, and I heard your husband's testimony. Ex-husband, I corrected gently. She nodded. Ex-husband, she repeated. His statements raised serious concerns, so I need to ask a few questions. Concern flickered under her professional tone. What kind of concerns? I asked. She took a breath. We have evidence Ethan provided false information on his residency application, specifically regarding his financial independence and support. My eyebrows furrowed. What does that mean? Dr. Carter flipped a page on her clipboard. He declared that he funded his entire education and living expenses. He claimed no external support. He indicated he had no cosigner, no financial sponsor, and no personal debts. I blinked in disbelief. He lied, I said quietly. Yes, Dr. Carter's expression hardened. And lying on a residency application is grounds for disciplinary action. In some cases, termination. My breath caught. Ethan's dream, the dream I carried on my shoulders for 7 years, was slipping out of his hands faster than he could grab it. Dr. Carter continued. We've also received a report that he submitted altered financial statements to his program director. They show only his loan disbursements and omit all personal contributions. I stared at the wall, not shocked, just painfully unsurprised. He didn't just lie in court. He lied everywhere. Dr. Carter softened slightly. I want to commend you, she said. You spoke with grace today, and I'm sorry you carried the weight of someone else's ambition for so long. I felt something tighten in my throat, but I swallowed it. Thank you, I whispered. She handed me a card. We may need a written statement if the investigation continues. A pause. And Mrs. Hale, you deserved better than what he gave you. She walked away before I could respond. I just stood there, holding her card, feeling something I hadn't felt since Ethan left. Validation. Not pity. Not sympathy. Truth. I exited the courthouse and stepped into the sun. The day was warm, golden, almost like the world wanted to remind me there was life beyond what I'd endured. But my phone buzzed before I reached the street. It was a text from an unknown number. Are you proud of what you did? No name. But I knew the voice behind the words. Ethan. Another message came seconds later. They're investigating me. The hospital called. This is your fault. I didn't respond. He tried again. You didn't have to show that envelope. Another. You could have kept your mouth shut. And finally, the one that revealed the truth behind every selfish decision he'd made. I worked too hard for this. You don't get to take it away from me. A calm settled over me like a quiet evening storm. I typed back one sentence. I didn't take anything from you. I exposed what you took from me. I pressed send. And then I blocked the number. For the first time in months, I didn't rush home. I walked, past the courthouse steps, past the downtown cafes, past the bookstore where I used to wait for Ethan during his study sessions. And as I walked, the truth unfolded itself inside me like a letter I'd never read before. I didn't lose him. I released him. Because he had become a cage I didn't realize I was living in. When I reached my apartment, I opened my calendar. Tomorrow morning, I would meet with a financial advisor about managing the restitution and alimony. Tomorrow afternoon, I would sign up for classes I had put off for years. Tomorrow evening, I would cook something I liked. not something Ethan preferred. For the first time in 7 years, my life wasn't on hold. And though I didn't know exactly what the future held, I knew one thing with complete certainty. My mother was right. Keep the truth. Keep the receipts. Keep yourself. Because sometimes the person you save is you. 3 days passed without a single message from Ethan, blocked on every device, locked out of every part of my life. I expected silence. I expected anger. I expected the collapse of everything he had built on lies. What I didn't expect was a knock on my door at 7:14 a.m. on a Thursday. I opened it cautiously. A woman stood there, mid-30s, slender, wearing faded navy scrubs and a tired ponytail. Her eyes were red, like she hadn't slept in weeks. "Are you—" She paused, steadying herself. "Laura Hale?" "Yes," I answered slowly. She exhaled with visible relief, though the relief had a tremble beneath it. "My name is Ariana Lopez," she said. "I work at Street Briar. I'm one of Ethan's co-residents." A cold ribbon slid down my spine. "What's going on?" Ariana swallowed, her hands twisting nervously around a strap of her bag. "I'm sorry to show up like this. I didn't know what else to do." She took a breath that shook. "And I think you deserve to know the truth." I let her inside. She sat on the edge of the sofa like someone preparing to confess a crime. Before she spoke, she pulled a folded sheet from her pocket, a disciplinary notice issued to Ethan. It read, "Immediate suspension pending investigation for falsification of financial documents and false statements during onboarding." My heart didn't race. It didn't hurt. It simply confirmed what I already understood. His entire foundation was built on lies. Ariana looked up. "He told everyone at the program that he put himself through school," she said. "He bragged about it, said he worked harder than anyone." I stared at her. "That wasn't true," I said quietly. "I know that now," she whispered. She rubbed her palms together anxiously. "Ethan's been melting down since the hearing. He blamed the program, blamed you, blamed the board. He even blamed me." I frowned. "You? Why you?" Ariana's shoulders collapsed like she'd been holding up a weight far too heavy. "Because," her eyes lifted to mine, "I was the woman he was seeing." The room tilted. Not from heartbreak. That part of me had already burned itself out. It tilted from recognition. This was the real reason. The root, the rot that began years ago. "When?" I asked, voice steady. Ariana covered her face for a moment, then lowered her hands. "He told me you were separated," she whispered. "He said the divorce was already in motion. He said you two had nothing in common anymore. I never would have gotten involved if I knew the truth." I believed her. There was something raw in her voice, something Ethan was incapable of faking. "How long?" I asked. Ariana hesitated. "And then, 4 years. 4 years. Nearly the entire length of medical school." A coldness spread through me, slow and strangely freeing. I had spent 7 years believing Ethan's distance came from stress, exhaustion, pressure. But it had been something else entirely. Someone else. Ariana twisted her hands again. "I found out he was lying 2 months ago," she whispered. "We got assigned to the same surgical team, and paperwork came through the office. I saw your name listed as his emergency contact." My eyebrows knitted tightly. "So that's when you learned he was still married?" She shook her head. "No. I learned he was still married when I found a picture of you two taken last Christmas. He told me you showed up uninvited." I nearly laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the exact kind of lie Ethan would tell. Clean, polished, strategic, Ariana continued. "When I confronted him, he said it didn't matter because you wouldn't fight him. He said you were—" What were his words? She swallowed. "Harmless, dependent, convenient." A faint tremor of memory sparked, the same tone he used whenever he told me to be patient, to wait for things to get better, to stop asking questions. Ariana looked tortured. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I had no idea he was using me. Using you. Using everyone." I sat down beside her, strangely calm. "You didn't owe me loyalty," I said. "He did." A small tear slipped down her cheek. But she wasn't done. "There's something else," she whispered. "Something you need to know." She opened her bag and pulled out a plain manila folder. Inside were printed emails, Dozens of them, between Ethan and the hospital's financial office. And then the email chain that froze my breath, requesting verification of spousal support for licensure approval. Ethan's reply: "My wife did not contribute to my education. We were financially separate. She has no claim to my earnings." The lie was in writing. Signed, timed, stamped by the residency director. I looked at Ariana. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked. She took a breath. "Because Ethan is telling everyone you ruined his life," she said. "And I can't watch him twist the truth again. Not after everything he's done." My throat tightened. Gratitude, sorrow, relief. A tangled mix of emotions, rising and releasing all at once. Ariana stood to leave. "I'm resigning," she whispered. "Transferring programs if they'll take me. I can't stay anywhere he is." I nodded slowly. She walked to the door, hesitated, then said, "He didn't deserve what you did for him." I met her eyes. "No, but I deserved better." She nodded, the smallest gesture of understanding, then left quietly. That night, an email from Detective Harlow pinged my inbox. He wrote, "New evidence has been added to the civil case. We may pursue additional claims regarding financial fraud." I knew exactly what the new evidence was. Ariana's folder. The truth Ethan spent years burying. I closed my laptop and sank into my couch. The apartment was silent, but not empty. The air felt different now. Lighter, sharper, honest. For the first time since Ethan filed for divorce, the betrayal didn't control me. The truth did. And the truth was this: he didn't leave when he became a doctor. He left when he no longer needed me. He didn't divorce me because we grew apart. He divorced me because he had someone else. He didn't forget my sacrifices. He discarded them. But the envelope? That was the piece he never saw coming. The one thing he couldn't lie his way around. I looked at it sitting on my kitchen counter, that simple paper envelope that held 7 years of receipts, promises, and proof. The one that turned the truth into justice. And tomorrow, the judge would announce the full financial penalty. Whatever it was, I knew one thing with certainty. It wasn't revenge. It was restoration. The day of the final ruling arrived with a soft gray sky, the kind of weather that made the world feel quiet, suspended, waiting. I wasn't nervous. Not anymore. I'd already lived the hardest parts. The betrayal, the lies, the years of sacrifice erased in a single signature. Now all that remained was truth, finally given a voice. I stepped into the courtroom. Envelope in my bag like an old friend. Ethan was already there, sitting beside a new attorney, older, more serious, clearly hired in panic. His eyes were dull, ringed with exhaustion. He didn't look confident anymore. He didn't look victorious. He looked cornered. He didn't look at me. The judge entered, and the room stilled. "This court has reviewed the complete evidence," she began, "including new information provided by the Street Briar residency program and sworn witness statements." Ethan shifted but didn't raise his head. "Before I read my ruling," the judge said, "Mr. Hale, do you wish to address this court?" His new attorney nudged him. He stood slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. "Your Honor," he swallowed. I'm asking the court to reconsider the severity of the penalties. My career is at risk. My future." The judge lifted her hand. "Mr. Hale, your actions put your own future at risk. Not your wife. Not this court. You." His mouth opened and closed like he couldn't find words. "You may sit," she said. He did, and then she began. "Regarding educational restitution, Mr. Hale is hereby ordered to repay $234,000 to Mrs. Hale, representing the full documented cost of his tuition, fees, and living expenses funded by her during his medical education." The number hit Ethan like a blow. His shoulders caved inward. But the judge wasn't done. "Regarding rehabilitative alimony, Mr. Hale will provide monthly support to Mrs. Hale for 5 years, allowing her to regain financial independence after supporting his academic and professional development." My heart beat steadily, not triumphantly, not aggressively, just steady. "Regarding attorney's fees, Mr. Hale will cover all legal costs incurred by Mrs. Hale." Ethan closed his eyes, still not done. "And regarding future income, for the next 5 years, A percentage of Mr. Hale's gross annual earnings, including residency, salary, bonuses, and any future medical employment, will be allocated to Mrs. Hale. His new attorney whispered urgently to him, but he looked too stunned to hear anything. Then came the part that surprised even me. The judge lifted the manila folder Ariana had provided. And finally, she continued, due to Mr. Hale's falsified statements to his medical program and intentional misrepresentation of marital history, the court finds grounds for additional compensatory damages. The courtroom went silent. This behavior demonstrated financial exploitation and emotional manipulation. Therefore, Mr. Hale is ordered to pay Mrs. Hale an additional $85,000 in compensatory damages. Ethan inhaled sharply, a broken, rattled sound. I didn't move. The judge set the papers down. This ruling is final. The gavel struck, and with that single sound, 7 years of sacrifice finally became something other than loss. Ethan didn't rush out this time. He stayed seated, staring blankly ahead like a man trying to understand how his life had collapsed in only a few days. I gathered my things quietly. When I turned to leave, he finally looked at me, and the expression on his face wasn't anger. It was disbelief. "You really did it," he whispered. "I didn't do anything," I said softly. "I just stopped protecting you." He blinked. "You were supposed to support me." "I did," I answered. "More than anyone ever will again." He flinched like each word struck somewhere tender. Then something inside him cracked open. "You ruined me," he said. I shook my head. "No, Ethan. I exposed you." He didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say. I walked toward the door, didn't look back, didn't hesitate. And for the first time in years, I felt light. Life didn't magically transform overnight, but it did feel new, like I was walking into a house where every window had finally been opened. I met with a financial advisor who helped me structure the restitution payments safely. She looked stunned when she read the court ruling. "You invested 7 years into a man who never deserved you," she said gently. "But you'll invest the next 7 into yourself." I nodded. Into myself. For the first time, that wasn't a wish. It was a plan. A week later, I received an email from Street Briar Medical. Subject: Residency Termination Notice. I opened it slowly. The message was short, clinical, final. Due to violations of program integrity, falsification of documents, and inappropriate conduct, Ethan Hale's residency position has been terminated effective immediately. I stared at the screen. Not with glee, not with satisfaction, with understanding. This was the path he chose when he decided honesty was optional. When he decided I was optional, when he decided everything he took from me didn't matter, but it mattered now, and it would matter for the rest of his life. 2 days later, I received an unexpected visitor. Ariana. She stood at my door again, but this time she wasn't trembling. She looked calmer, clearer. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For showing me who he really was, before he destroyed my life too." I nodded. "I hope you find something better," I said. She exhaled. "I already have. A position opened in Denver. I got accepted. I start in July." I smiled gently. "You deserve a fresh start." "So do you," she replied. We hugged, briefly, softly, 2 women who survived different versions of the same man. The night after she left, I took the envelope, the one that changed everything, and placed it in a small wooden box. Then I added something else, a blank sheet of paper. Not for Ethan, not for the past, for whatever comes next. For every dream I had postponed, for every version of myself I abandoned, for every life I thought I'd missed out on. Now it was mine again. All of it. I stepped onto my balcony, watching the city lights glitter like scattered stars, and whispered into the quiet night, "I choose me." For the first time in 7 years, those words felt real. Those words felt free. Those words felt like the beginning of everything. Did you like my story? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. More life stories are waiting for you.